About what began with a few snarky comments quickly turned nasty, exploding into an all-out war of words between two big celebrities. There was a ceasefire, of course, over Christmas, but in the last 2 days, a new round has begun when Rosie posted a poem on her blog, and, well, the nastiness is only growing. Earlier today, I talked to Donald Trump about the prospect of a truce. We'll have that interview in a moment, but first, how we got here in all of its ugly brilliance. It started with an act of forgiveness. Donald Trump last week deciding not to strip Miss USA Tara Conner of her crown after she'd been caught underage drinking.
Mr. Trump, I want to thank you.
Rosie O'Donnell wasn't buying it. From her perch on ABC's The View, she fired the first volley.
He's the moral authority. Left the first wife, had an affair. Left the second wife, had an affair. Had kids both times, but he's the moral compass for 20-year-olds in America. Donald, sit and spin, my friend.
That didn't sit well with Donald Trump, nor did her allegations about him filing for Chapter 11. He fired back and threatened to hit her where it hurts, the wallet.
So probably I'll sue her because it would be fun. I'd like to take some money out of her fat ass pockets.
The next day, Rosie didn't seem to take the bait. She remained mostly mum on the subject.
Here's my comment to him.
But Trump wasn't done. He went on CNN's Larry King that night and continued firing away.
The best thing Rosie has going is her girlfriend, Kelly. Now, if Kelly ever leaves Rosie, she'll never find another one, believe me, because who's going to want Rosie? How would you like to have to kiss that goodnight, Larry? That would not be for you.
And it seemed that was that. But on Wednesday, Rosie took to her blog, penning a poem which doesn't mention Trump by name, but doesn't need to. A young girl in New York, she writes, meets a pimp. He cons her into a life of illusion. She works for him. No fun, no f***ing, no future. She is owned. When she sneaks out to party the night away, he freaks. He roughs her up a bit, shames her in front of the others, teaches her to behave for his own benefit. Not to let Rosie get the last word, Donald Trump used today's New York Post to call her a mental midget. Now the fight that was in danger of dying out is back on. But for how long?
This feud has to end soon because these two are treading a fine line. The public is fascinated with this feud, but very quickly the public is going to get annoyed with this feud. And there really isn't much more to talk about. The major mudslinging has been done. I think with the new year they're going to have to move on, and I think that Donald is going to be the one to sort of patronizingly say, I've had enough of this, I'm done.
Not much more to talk about. Au contraire, mon frere, to say that no love's been lost between these two, well, that is putting it mildly. Glad tidings and holiday cheer have not made a dent in this feud. That much was clear when I talked to Donald Trump earlier today. So what happened? It seemed like there was a Christmas ceasefire. Then all of a sudden, Rosie writes this poem on her blog. Did it surprise you that she would continue this fight?
Well, you know, Anderson, Rosie's a loser. There's no question about that. People know it. People that know her know it. And I assumed that it was over. She got beaten up pretty badly, and then she wrote a blog. Now, she didn't mention my name at all because she's gutless. But she's a person that, frankly, Barbara Walters, you know, she resurrected her. And I will tell you this, Barbara is not thrilled about it because I spoke with Barbara. Barbara is not a fan of Rosie. That I can tell you. Now, I don't think Barbara's going to admit that.
Yeah, publicly,
but Barbara is not a fan of Rosie.
Publicly, Barbara Walters has put out a statement basically saying that she's a friend of yours, but that she likes having Rosie on The View. You think that's not the case?
Well, what else is she going to say? And Rosie will fail with The View just like she's failed with everything else. In all fairness, Rosie got thrown off the air with her other show because she got poor ratings, and you're doing very well in your ratings, so congratulations. But Rosie's ratings were not good. And then she had a magazine which was a total catastrophe. In fact, a rising star, the head of that whole publishing company, ended up losing his job over Rosie the magazine. It was a total failure. So Rosie was down and out, and Barbara resurrected her, at least for a little while. But Rosie will fail. I mean, Rosie's got a death wish. She is not a smart person. I know Rosie.
What do you mean she's got a death wish?
This is not a woman with intellect. Excuse me?
What do you mean she's got a death wish?
Well, I think she's got a death wish. I think Rosie will fail at whatever she does because ultimately she's got a death wish. That's my theory on Rosie.
You're probably not a big reader of her blog, but I just want to read a poem or part of a poem that she put on, which has sort of sparked this all up again. She sort of compares you to a pimp. She says, remember the 70s, a young girl in New York City meets a pimp. He cons her into a life of illusion. She works for him. Do you think she's calling you a pimp?
Well, she certainly is, and she shouldn't be doing that because that could cost her a lot of money. But the fact is that what I did and how this all started is I own the Miss USA pageant and the Miss Universe pageant. The Miss USA has had problems. Rather than getting rid of her, which a lot of people frankly wanted me to do, including Rosie, I gave her a second chance. She's right now in rehab, and I gave her a second chance. So instead of saying to this young woman who's in the very formative years, I said, hey, I'm going to give you, life is about second chances, I'm going to give you a second chance. Rosie went crazy. Now, I guarantee you Rosie would have given her a second chance, but for other reasons. Rosie went crazy. And this is how it all started. It is totally ridiculous. But I really think Rosie has some real problems.
I want to play for the one or two people on the planet who didn't see this or haven't seen it subsequently what Rosie originally said after the Tara Conner press conference. Here's what she said on The View.
He's the moral authority. Left the first wife, had an affair. Left the second wife, had an affair. Had kids both time, but he's the moral compass for 20-year-olds in America.
Was it that comment, or was it her false allegations that you've declared bankruptcy multiple times?
Well, you know, it's sort of interesting. I never declared bankruptcy, and like everybody else in the early 90s, I had difficulty, but I never went bankrupt. She said I did. I'm on the cover last month of the Forbes 400. I'm the cover boy of the Forbes 400 rich list, and I don't care about that, except it just shows what a liar she is. She said I went bankrupt. She talks about which was false. She talks about moral compass. I mean, look at Rosie. Look at where she comes. Have you ever seen a comedy act, which is, by the way, terrible? I was at one of her comedy acts, and most of the people left because she was so disgusting. Not funny, and disgusting. So, you know, Rosie shouldn't be talking. I mean, the one I feel sorry for in the whole thing is her girlfriend, Kelly. Anybody that has to kiss Rosie, I feel very sorry for.
So, all right, so this is all fun in a perverse sort of way, but is it also just a big publicity stunt, huh? What do you guys think? I asked Donald Trump about that coming up and whether he would actually be willing to go on The View and shake hands with Rosie O'Donnell and bury the hatchet in a friendly kind of way, not in a, attacking kind of way. His answers are coming up on that.